Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, we'll be reviewing the new WRC Edition CSL Elite steering wheel from Fanatec. With the new simplified QRA quick release system, time to put it through the SRG's review process and see how it does. So, let's get to it. Now for our closer look segment on the Fanatec WRC Rally Wheel. Now this is their newest wheel and introduced for World Rally Championship driving, and of course it's associated with that game on Xbox, and this is an Xbox compatible wheel. So, and again, it's an Elite Series wheel, so it has that light feeling that Elite steering wheels usually have. At least when I get them out of the box, they feel that way. But there's another reason why it feels kind of lightish, and we'll get to that in a minute. So we'll talk about the front here. It has 3 spokes that have that brushed finish on it, kind of a brushed aluminum. Kind of nice. I like this kind of stuff because it doesn't show fingerprints as bad. And yeah, so again, I kind of like the brush stuff instead of the high gloss. And of course we have some screen printing here for the Fanatec logo WRC. And we've got what looks to be like a World Rally Championship tire going through some water or some mud and dirt or whatever. So that's the graphics. Now we have the button layout over here. We've got 7 buttons on this side and we have 6 on this side. And you can see they have the usual Xbox labeling on them, and of course our Xbox button over there, compatible with the Xbox as long as your wheelbase is compatible with Xbox. And we also have over here on this side a kind of a funky switch. And the reason I say that is it's not really the usual joystick analog feeling device that we get on some of the wheels from Fanatec. This actually has a click going right, left, up, and down, and you can actually push it. So it's a 5-way switch, or it can also, I'm sure, be used as an analog as you push it around, I would imagine. But you cannot turn it, so it's not really a funky switch. You can't turn it left or right, or you can't turn it clockwise or counterclockwise. So it is what it is as far as that goes. Now there are some replacement buttons over here that we'll take a look at in a minute that we can replace the Xbox stuff. If I'm going to run this on the PC, I don't need the letters and the Xbox logo over there. And there might be something over there on that button table, or these little things they give you with the buttons in it, that I might be able to use instead, right? All right, so what else are we going to talk about here? It's a nice grip, actually. When I took it out, it has this oblongish shape to it. See, it's kind of thin here, and as we turn it, it gets thick, right? And that kind of fits the human hand pretty well. And it reminds me of regular racing wheels. So I think they've got the racing wheel thing down as far as shape now. It you know, like a OMP or a Sparco that is the same kind of shapes. We have some thumb rest over here on both sides. And yeah, it just feels good in hand. It's got a little bit of cush to it when you squeeze it. Not too much. Of course, you don't want too much. And just about the right amount. So I really like the grip. Of course, I haven't used it yet on as far as racing with it. And so once that happens, then I'll know for sure whether I like it. But I really like the finish here in, again, the Alcantara or Alcantara, however you want to say it, material that they're using here. And it has some nice orange. Of course, orange is the scheme here on this wheel. And it has some nice stitching here. I'll let you guys see it as I go around with it there. And yeah, it's very nicely done. There's no loose threads hanging off, any frayed threads or anything like that. So well done as far as the stitching goes. And really, I'm not too surprised because Fanatec usually has a good quality control when it comes to this kind of finish, or the finish in general on their products. And on the back, you can see that the stitching also goes up where the spokes are. We have some there, and you can see where the seam is that comes down on the spoke, where they wrap it around on the back. So again, very nicely done. It feels comfortable in hand. So again, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be very happy with this once I'm using it. And of course, we have this plastic bit on the top, and it has an LED in there, or maybe a few LEDs. We'll see once we get to that point. And that's going to probably give us a shift indicator, things like that. So we'll see once we get the driver set up for this. Speaking of the driver, there is a new driver to be able to use this wheel, and it's a version 3.17. At least that's what I have on the pre-release version, and that's a beta. So by the time they release this wheel, it's September, they're going to be releasing it. They should have a public release driver set for this wheel, so you won't have any problems using it. At least that's what we hope. Right, so what else about this wheel? Oh, the price on this wheel. It's $200 in the US, plus your shipping, of course. So $200 wheel. All right, now let's go take a look around the back, and this is where things get really interesting. And you're looking at the future of Fanatec quick releases, I believe. And this is on this is a on the Elite, obviously. So this is the plastic, or what they have, this solution of plastic and glass injection molded parts that they use in a lot of Fanatec stuff. And that's what this is. That's the new quick release. Now we do have some shifters here, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, as you might imagine, once I get to it. So these shifters here are very big, and they're very orange, and they're aluminum. And they have a powder coat, it seems. It's not really anodized. It's more of a powder coat finish on these, which is kind of a smoother feel, a slicker feel, if you will. And for some reason, it's not showing my fingerprints either. So I'm not sure what that is, but it feels pretty good to the hands, kind of smooth. And you can take these off, by the way, if you need to. Of course, we've just got a couple of screws there to pull these off. And if you want to run the static shifters that you can on the Elite wheelbase, yeah, you can just do that if you want and not use these shifters. They're spring shifters, the normal fare for this line of wheels. And the Club Sports also, so it's not magnetic yet at this level. And it doesn't look like, as you can see, there's no holes or bolts or anything. So it doesn't look like we're going to be able to use the Club Sport magnetic paddles on this. Anyway, so anything else we want to talk about here before we get to this? All right, so here is, this is awesome. All right, this is the solution to the issue of, and some people have it and some people don't with Fanatec gear, and that is the looseness that you can have on these things on the shaft of the wheel that or wheelbase shaft that you're attaching this to. All right, so typically we have always had this. Now this is, of course, this is the Elite, so this is a little bit different. Before I get to that, let me just explain that normally on the Elites we had that metal band system where you had the bolt and you put it on there and you screw the bolt down, and that's what held it, right? So so the Elite was different than the Club Sport, and of course now the Podium quick releases, which are metal and they have the spring-loaded ring on them and all that good stuff, like this. Okay. All right. So the Elite didn't have that, so I don't want you to get mixed up or anything. I don't want to make people say, "Wait a minute, Barry, the Elite never had that." Right. So this replaces the band system, which is very, very good. But this has echoes also. It has to. I can't imagine it wouldn't be the future design of what's going to be happening to the Club Sport and Podium quick releases too. Now, again, this is the glass plastic injection stuff. I don't know if they'll be using that on the higher ends when they ever come out with this for that, or like the Club Sport or the Podium. But yeah, this works fine. There's nothing wrong with the way this works. And I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to do a little segment here on the anatomy of the new Fanatec quick release system. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to actually take this off and we'll take a look at it and see how it works on the shaft, which is, I'm going to use a Podium shaft. I have an extra one here. We'll use that to demonstrate how it goes on and off, and yeah, take a look at how all this stuff works. But otherwise, yeah, this wheel feels pretty good. I don't really have any issues with it as far as the handling. It feels like it's going to be a good wheel to have. And it's 300, by the way, the size on this thing is 300 millimeters, which is kind of the sweet spot, I think, for sim racing. 300, 320 for a round wheel. And being 300 for rally, this is going to be right in there. I think this is going to be a very good wheel for that kind of driving. But we'll see once I have it mounted on my Fanatec stuff or Fanatec stuff and we're actually driving it. So what we're going to do next is we're going to get to the quick release and how all this stuff works. Now let's take a closer look at this new revolutionary, I don't know about revolutionary, but at least evolutionary quick release from Fanatec. And again, I hope that this is going to be on the Club Sports and the Podium series eventually, but we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? Now, when you first pull this thing out of the box, this is what you see, right? And it's basically telling you do not over tighten or over loosen this. And what that means is there are stops on this. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off so we can see a little more what's going on here. And that means that if I'm loosening it, there's a stop to the loosen, right? And if I'm tightening it, that's it. It also has a stop there. So there's no tightening it beyond these stops. And they don't want you cranking down on it with a pair of channel lock pliers or some kind of an oil filter rubber thing that I've been using on my regular quick releases to get them tightened down the way I want them. But yeah, you can't do that with this. And there's a line in here, a little indicator line, and that means it's all the way loose. And when I tighten it, turning it clockwise, you can see it disappears. That means it's fully tightened. All right, simple enough, right? I really like this. It's so simple, and it's going to be much better than the clamp, that little clamp ring that we had on the Elites before with the bolt that we bend it down and then you cinch it all down and then it holds it. It's going to be much better than that. And I have a Podium wheelbase wheel shaft, or the motor shaft here, that connects to the motor. And I'm going to use that for my demonstration on how this indexes, just like everything else. And of course, this is going to be backwards compatible with any wheelbase that you have. And of course, the wheelbase will have the usual index in there, right? The little slot in here that will index into usually there's a piece in here, a little key piece. You can see it right there. And it's simple. Once it's loosened up and we see our white line in there, then we just slide this in just like we normally would. Like so. Right, so we slid our wheel, and that's our wheelbase hanging back there, imaginary wheelbase, and that's how it's going to look. Now, when I lock it down, again, we have our little indicators there, and I'll be turning this clockwise, and that little indicator line should disappear. So that's what I'll do. I'll just go ahead and tighten this down, and there it is. There's the stop. Right? In that, of course, obviously, when it's on the wheelbase, I'll be able to tell even more, but I have to say, there is no up and down or lateral movement that I can feel right away. And usually you can feel that. Now, another thing here is when you put it on the Podium wheelbases, you do not tighten this down. You don't want to expand that rubber ring. You might just kind of get it just snug so it doesn't move around when you're using it, but you're not going to crank down on this ring to try to expand that rubber. Do not do that. All right. You don't need to do that with this type of setup. That's what they're saying, right? I might just do it like using 2 fingers, might tighten it that much, and that's it. But yeah, it feels very, very, very tight. This is, like I said, this will be a game changer for the guys who have the quick releases that might be a little loose, because, for years we've had this system right here, the spring loaded on the sports and the club sport stuff. And it's hit or miss as far as if it's going to be tight or maybe a little loose or a lot loose on the motor shaft because of it's just a quality control issue, the way they manufacture these things. Sometimes they have better quality than they do as far as in the production process, and the tolerance is a little bit less or more, depending on which one you get. And so that creates a looseness. And there's really no way to tighten it any further once this is in here in the quick release. Now, they do give you this little bolt hole thing. Let's see, where's the bolt hole? It's on the other side. I think it's on the bottom. Anyway, there's a hole down here that we're supposed to be able to, there it is, put a bolt through there, and the bolt would cinch into the actual shaft, right? And it would actually push down on the shaft or cinch into the shaft, and you could tighten everything down anyway, is the object. But that still didn't get rid of all the flex that I had, and a lot of other people have had with Fanatec over the years. Now, of course, you might get lucky and this has a tighter tolerance and it slides on your motor shaft and it's nice and tight and you don't have any issues. But again, it was luck of the draw. Well, this kind of release, quick release, can change all that, right? Now we're going to have something that's very tight, and it's going to, if it does what I think it does when we get to the Podium series with this design, it's going to take away really the only complaint that I have on the Podium series in general is the inconsistency with the quick release as far as stiffness. And the Podium wheel is a nice motor in there that can deliver very finite detail of force feedback. And if you have any kind of looseness in the connection of your wheel hub to the motor shaft, then that's a dampening effect. It doesn't matter that we get rotational forces as far as force feedback. It's going, back and forth real quick, and that's what we're actually feeling. That's rotational. But if it's loose laterally or up and down, it's still going to act as a dampening effect on those finite details. That with something like this, I'm pretty sure so far, well, I'll know for sure once I get it on the wheel and using it, this is going to cure all of that. And that's going to take away some of the complaints that people have as far as the Fanatec goes. And yeah, this could be the game changer for them to make, nobody can argue, well, I went and got this other direct drive wheel because they have the quick release systems that are solid, and you can get all the effects, every little piece of effects that motor is able to produce into your hands. So that's going to kill that. That's going to quench that argument forever. If, again, they come out with this and it's on the Podium series for the direct drive connections. And of course, it's going to be that much better for the guys that are running these on their Club Sport wheelbases too. Just better all around. I mean, you know, this is really cool. I like this very much. Now, I'm going to go ahead and loosen this up and make sure that I don't have any kind of pressing going on here. And see, this is not going to come out easy, which is good. I don't want it to come out easy because it's not mounted to anything, right? So if it was mounted to the wheelbase already and I had it mounted, then I could just pull this off without too much trouble. But yeah, this is feeling good, not coming out very easily, but I'll get it out. There we go. Okay, so I got it back out. Now let's talk about what they're doing and how this design is working. And to do that, I've got one over here already disassembled. Okay, so, and this again is a screw-on unit, right? Just like that one is. And it has the stops in it, but you're not seeing the stops now because I've taken this little piece here from around the back of this piece, the actual nut piece, if you will. And this goes in there into these little grooves with some screws, very small screws. I took them out. In fact, I could just show you on, well, it's not going to be easy to see, but I'll see if I can show you. It's these right down in here. I think you can see one there. Is that one? Yeah. Okay. So there's one of the screws right there. All right. It's a little Phillips head screw, and it looks like this. Teeny little screw. So make sure if you ever have to take that apart, you take good care to not lose these. All right. Little flat heads. All right. Because we got some countersunk holes in this part here that I actually took loose, right? And that helps stop it and hits the stops like it's supposed to, right? So let's pull this off, or untwist it, and see how this works. Now we have a little ball in here, and this ball is embedded into the plastic, and the purpose of that is to index, if you will, on the bottom part as a counter index into the dimples that we normally see in the Fanatec motor shafts that we've seen forever. And yeah, it just slides in there and indexes while it goes in. Now, if you'll notice, we have some threads around this plastic piece, and it is got an angle to it, so it comes down narrower. And of course, it's got an even more of an angle to it right at the very end where it first goes in. And also, you can see we have 4 cuts into this all the way around. So that leaves us 4 independent sections, right? Because of when they cut it, the kerf left by the cutting blade leaves that space there. So now we can take these leaves, if you will, and press down onto the shaft when we're twisting this ring down on top of it. So the further this ring goes in, like this, because it has its own bevel inside of it, and you guys can see that bevel right in here, right in this section. So that's actually pushing down on this and causing it to grab the shaft as we're doing that. So as I'm taking this in here and I'm spinning it down, these leaves are hitting that smooth piece that you just saw, that smooth area, and it's squeezing them together. And I'm just going to keep twisting it and twisting it. Now, this is going to go further than it should because I've got this loose, I believe. But it can only go so far because the angle of this, the cone shape of it, will get so big that this can't move anymore eventually. So you tighten it down and it just presses those leaves together. And the reason I'm demonstrating this way, I'm trying to show you the gaps closing up. And yeah, so that's about as far as the gaps are going to close up, which is probably plenty for the tolerances of these shafts. And what this does that this system can't do is it allows for tolerance variances in the size or the diameter of this machine to finish piece. If I'm off a few thousandths on this or a few hundredths or whatever, this will be able to tighten down on it enough to take that slack up. So it'll stop. If I have a bigger one, it'll stop sooner as far as turning it. When I'm turning it down, I'll get this back off. When I'm turning this down to tighten it up and pressing those leaves or those sections together and tightening on this shaft down here, then once that's reached a certain place where it's nice and tight on this and can't tighten down anymore, it will stop, right? But we also have hard stops in it, as you saw before, that are safety stops that won't go past that anyway, right? So easy enough to figure that out. All right, that's how it works. It's pretty simple, really, if you think about it. I mean, how simple is this? It's even simpler than the spring-loaded quick-release system. And that would usually lend to good durability, number one. Number two, easy to work on and replace. If something happens to this, somebody breaks one for whatever reason or wears out, whatever, it's easy to replace these parts. All you have to do is remove 3 screws on the back of this little keeper ring here that goes, and you can see how that keeper ring goes. I was going to try to get it off these threaded pieces here. Maybe I can still do it without breaking it. I don't want to break it. Oh, there we go. And of course, now I'm getting myself all greasy. But this keeper ring goes back in right like this. Let me show you guys how this works. We got some countersunk holes in there for our screws. There we go. Now I got it in there. So that's how it goes in. So once this is in there, then obviously it's creating a different system for going on here. In fact, I can't screw it on now because this is blocking it. So this keeps it from coming on and off, right? Easy enough to figure that out. Okay. Anything else we want to talk about? We got some ribs on the inside here. And I'm going to do a look inside on the wheel like I always do. And I'll take this off and I'll see if it has the same ribs as this one that I have here. And yeah, like I said, this is so simple yet so effective. I'm sure that this is going to cure any problems that anybody's going to have with a loose connection for the quick release on their Fanatec wheels. I'm pretty sure it's going to take care of it. I mean, we'll have to wait and see once we get to that point. But anyway, yeah, I like the design. I don't know about you guys, but I like it. But I'd like to see this, obviously, if we're getting in club sport, I'd like to see some metal in here, maybe aluminum on both sides. I'm not sure where they're going to go with this, have no idea. But yeah, I'd like to see this all metal. Aluminum piece here and aluminum piece up here, maybe even this too. I guess it really doesn't matter for this because you're not supposed to be torquing down on this. And remember, when you put it on the podium wheel, you do not torque this guy down either. You don't want to expand that rubber at all because this is doing the job now and you don't have to worry about that. You're done. Right. So yeah, I guess that's about all I can show you as far as the anatomy of the new Fanatec quick release system. I'm really excited about this. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are, especially Fanatec themselves, because again, if this does what it's supposed to do, and I think it will, as far as what I can see here, as far as the design and everything, then yeah, a loose wheel connection to any of the Fanatec wheelbases is going to be a thing of the past. Now for our look inside segment on the Fanatec WRC Rally Wheel. All right, so I've removed the front screws here, which will let the back go, right? But we also have a couple of screws. Turn this around this way. Or several screws. We've got one here, right? We've got one here, and we've got one over here. Now this one was hiding under the indoor, you see a little sticker there for the quality pass, or call it quality inspection thing. Now you want to be careful when you're laying this around. You don't want to bend any of these pins once we have the quick release assembly off. And that's what it looks like. Very similar to the other one I have, as far as the ends, except that this one has a tab on it and this one does not. So yeah, works just like the other one does. And we'll take a little peek inside. First off, we do have not just an LED up there for a rev limiter. You can see the LED here, the little circuit board peeking through in there. But we also have a 3-digit display on this wheel. See it there? And this is the normal display that we see in Fanatec wheels that will let us change settings in our tuning menu from the wheel, and also probably give us some other information while we're in the actual game. So let's go ahead and carefully pull the back off now and let some pressure off of it and see what we have here. Of course, we're going to have the main harness for our plugs here, right, the little pins, and that's plugging into the main board down there. You see it there. And these are the 2 plugs. Be careful here with things, I don't want to jerk anything around. And these are the 2 end plugs that these wires, you can see they're going into the rim there, and we have the same thing going on over here. And again, that's supporting the LEDs up here in the display screen. We have the push buttons, ones that I've seen on other wheels, and yeah, not much to see here as usual. Just a nicely laid out circuit board from Fanatec. And of course, this is not something that you could fix or anything, so yeah, not much to say about that. And the buttons are mounted on top of this, but I'm going to put this back on here because there's really no reason to pull that circuit board off and show you that. But because all these buttons are mounted on top of the circuit board, all these buttons here, and of course this guy is too. Our little, I'm calling it the 5-way. I'm not calling it a joystick. All right, so yeah, there's not much else to see here, right? Pretty simple, the usual stuff we see from Fanatec. Very neat and tidy everywhere you look. And yeah, what we come to expect. So we'll just get on to the next segment. Now I want to take you guys through the process of installing the wheel onto the wheelbase using the new quick release system. Very simple, obviously, not a whole lot to see here, but I just want to show you. And there's a couple of things I want to show you too about because this is a podium wheel, obviously this Elite steering wheel is not meant to be used at high torque forces. So this podium wheelbase is not going to let me use higher torque. And I'm going to show you a little message about that when it comes up. And also we're going to have the Fanatec wheel properties up so we can see this and watch it recognize the wheel and the quick release for that matter. But anyway, pretty simple here. What we do is just slide it on, push it on. And remember, like I showed you before in a closer look, we have an indicator line right here. So you guys can see that, my light. And as we turn this, that indicator line is going to go away, right? Disappear, which would indicate that it's locked. And if you're behind the steering wheel, locking is counterclockwise and unlocking is clockwise, okay? So without further ado, let's go ahead and just make sure it's all the way unlocked and slide this on, and I'll show you what happens. I'm just pushing it on all the way till it seats, and the pins inside of the hub engage the holes that are in the actual wheelbase wheel shaft here. And I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll watch the properties up there, and we're going to be looking for the little message I'm going to get about the torque too, the torque warning. So let me go and shove it all the way on. And there it is. It popped right up. No problem. And there's the picture. I'm going to show you a little piece right there that shows the torque warning because it is an Elite steering wheel. Right, so everything's looking good. And now I'm going to turn this way so we can see the label again. And I am going to tighten it up. Of course, that means going counterclockwise from my perspective. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn this until I hit the stop. And there it is. And of course, you saw the little marker. If you were watching, it disappeared too, showing that now we're in the lock position. I'll turn it back to the normal position of driving, and that's all there is to it. Now, there is one more thing I want to mention here, and that is this ring here. You're not supposed to tighten this against the rubber piece on the Podium Series wheelbases, and it says that in the directions. But I am going to just snug it up, just finger tight, just 2 fingers. And this is to keep this ring back here that pushes on or crushes that rubber. If I don't do that, it's going to flop around. It can move around. I don't know if you can hear it clicking there. But yeah, I don't want that to happen, so I'll just take a finger or 2 fingers and just snug that up so it doesn't happen, right? So I don't get some weird noises when I'm driving, thinking something's rattling around inside of the wheel. Right, so that's all I do. And yeah, so that's about it as far as mounting the wheel. Now, I'm going to take another look up here at the Fanatec wheel properties, and you can see that we see the Fanatec wheel, right, the WRC. So we have the PC Driver 371 set in here. This is a beta release, should be public release by the time that you guys see this video. And I'm going to go over here to update. And you can see again 371 for the PC Driver, wheelbase firmware is 375, and we have the motor firmware at 40. Steering wheel firmware is 1 because this is a new steering wheel, and that's the first firmware for it. And we even have a wireless quick release firmware of 6 that it updated. Now all this stuff updated flawlessly, and best practices with Fanatec drivers when you load new ones is I usually get rid of the old ones. I remove it from the computer through the programs feature, removing any kind of software. You get rid of it, then you load the new package, all right, or new set of drivers, and then I make sure I don't have a steering wheel on here when I fire up the Fanatec wheelbase, and then go ahead and open it and start updating. I want to update my wheelbase and my motor first before I even think about updating the wheels themselves. And this really went flawlessly. It found the WRC wheel, it installed the drivers for the quick release and for the steering wheel firmware, and not only that, but it prompted me and walked through without any issues. I updated the Podium hub, I updated the endurance module, and then I updated both of my Formula V2 wheels, the F1 2020 and the usual Club Sport V2 wheel, the formulas, without a hitch. Everything went great. And that's great when that happens, because I did a lot of updating and everything went smoothly. So you have to like that. So we've got all the drivers installed, the wheels installed, everything is working as it should be. So now it's time to get in and do some driving. So now for a quick flex test. Now I'm not being easy on this wheel at all. I'm not being gentle. I'm putting as much pressure as I can on it to get it to move, just to show you what the limitations are of this new quick release system. And if you'll notice, almost all the flex is coming from the plastic housing on the back of the button plate section of this wheel, which is normal for an Elite Series level type of steering wheel. I fully expected this. But notice how the quick release itself, there's no flex in the quick release. Now there is some movement on the shaft itself, but yeah, I'm being pretty hard on it here, and I think Fanatec has got a winner here with this new quick release system. So here we are in iRacing in Sonoma at the Rallycross track in the Ford Fiesta. So the wheel in hand feels very good. I didn't have any complaints about my hand not fitting it right and causing me fatigue or cramping or anything like that during longer stints. And I put quite a few hours on this wheel. I'd say about maybe total 4 or 5 hours. And yeah, I really haven't any complaint about that. The ergonomics are good. And of course, that's kind of subjective depending on your hand type, but I think this is a good overall shape for most people. Will enjoy using it. And the Alcantara, or Alcantara, however you want to say it, that material wore quite well. I didn't have any issues with that coming off or it shedding any of the little flakes sometimes you get off of suede leather, things like that. Everything held together quite well as far as the stitching there. No seams came apart. I used it pretty heavily as far as slamming around as much as I could. The buttons all worked fine. They mapped well without any issues at all, and which is typical of Fanatec. Really, that's typically how all this stuff works. Now, the digital readout and the shift light LED all worked fine right out of the box without using the Fanaleds, which sometimes I have to use in certain games, but in this iRacing it picked it right up. And you can see the digital's working great for the shifter, indicator, and of course the speed, and of course my shift light's working also. Now, the shifters themselves, they're the typical Elite type shifters. They're spring driven, and they're stiff enough. There is some flex in them, and they're soft, but soft enough to where you'll never get tired of shifting them, even on longer stints, which can be sometimes these magnetic shifters you get can wear on you a little bit on long stints. But yeah, you'll never ever get tired of pulling these, and they work fine. I never had any hiccups when I pressed them. They worked like they should, so I can't find any real error with that. You certainly can't miss them if you're not under the VR hood because of the bright orange color. And yeah, they just work fine. They just got on with doing what they're supposed to do and really just kind of fading into the background once you're in the heat of battle when you're driving hard. And yeah, like I said, CSL Elite wheels in general, it is a little flexy, as you saw around the hub area where the hub's actually connecting to the back plastic housing. But again, this is not something new or surprising when it comes to the Elite Series stuff, and not enough to cause me any concern as far as braking. But I could tell that this DD1 wheel, that some of the force feedback effects were a little bit dampened by that. But I do like this quick release system, as I've been saying throughout the review. This is really great. Fanatec has done this. It's stiff at that part of it where it's gripping the motor shaft. It's coupled to that. It's stiff as I've ever seen any CSL Elite Series quick release type system. Of course, we're talking about the former one, which is the metal band with the bolt on it. Even though you tighten that bolt down real hard, it doesn't grip as well as this does. So I'm really happy about this quick release, and yeah, I'm really excited to see if they're going to be bringing something like this out for the Club Sport and Podium Series. But it's working great here, no complaints at all. And yeah, at the end of the day, this wheel just gets it done. And the World Rally Championship WRC graphics, it is a licensed wheel, and the typical things that we see from Fanatec when it comes to licensed wheels, it just gets it done as far as the job, and it's a comfortable wheel to use. So if you're looking for a wheel, you might want to consider this one in the Fanatec lineup. Final thoughts on the new WRC CSL Elite steering wheel from the guys at Fanatec. At a diameter of 300 millimeters, this wheel is large enough to give you a good feel for driving. It has an Alcantara cover on the rim grip that is also nice feeling to your hand. There is some bright orange stitching all the way around the rim that is properly done without any defects that I could find. The aluminum front of the wheel has a brush finish that is resistant to fingerprints. The button layout is intuitive and easy to use. I do like that instead of the usual analog joystick found on most Fanatec wheels, they have added detents to allow its action to be more precise. The rear of the wheel has an injection-molded plastic housing covering the internal electronics, which are done in the usual professional way I have come to expect from Fanatec. There is a shift light and digital display at the top of this wheel. The bright orange shifter paddles are easy to reach for most drivers, I think, and when I was using them, they did not have any issues or dramas. They just got the job done. They have the usual CSL Elite type of light feeling resistance that makes them easy to use for hours. While overall this is a good wheel package, the most notable item I found here is the new quick release design Fanatec will be using moving forward. They call it the Simplified QRA. It has a simple but very effective clamping mechanism. When I connected it to my wheelbase, I noticed an improvement in the clamping force over the previous band type of solution Fanatec has been using. It looks to be backwards compatible with other CSL Elite wheels. There still is some flex in the connection to the wheelbase shaft when I applied as much force as I could, but not as much as before. Most of the flex we see here is from the injection molded plastic housing on the back of the wheel. I really like this new quick release solution, and I can only hope that Fanatec will be implementing a similar solution to their Club Sport and Podium quick release systems in the near future. This wheel should be available for order starting on September the 4th at a price of $200. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.